Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're gonna talk about the difference between the Eastern and Western consciousness in regards to software development. And this might be a little bit strange for some of you guys, but still, I would before actually describing the particular difference, I would like to reference the ancient Chinese practice of Qigong and Wushu in general, just to show how exactly the Eastern consciousness is designed, basically. Because like when we're talking about the Western consciousness, it's quite pretty trivial in terms of it's not really trivial; it's really complicated, but it's all around there. So you see all this science, all this I don't know programming is the pure product of the Western consciousness itself. So I can hardly imagine that programming would be invented in, say, China or India or even in Ukraine where I'm living. So still, it's pretty kind of not it's not really good place to for the programming to born. I believe so. It was actually born. In the western part of our world. Sorry, just something on the screen there. So it's not a big deal to understand how the Western consciousness works, but it's really not that easy to understand how the Eastern consciousness works. And just want to reference the very roots of the Eastern consciousness, at least according to my own understanding, as say long-term Qigong and traditional Wushu practitioner. And like the last video, I've shared how I've just learned a form of what is known as Yanshan Taiji Zhan, which is the self-development practice, Chinese self-development practice invented by Professor Zhang Guande. So I will try to explain how it relates with all these practices and forms and this topic and how it relates to software development in particular. And I'm sorry, so I just please bear with me and try to follow my flow, and hopefully you will understand what am I talking about here. So I just want to reference YouTube. Let me just get rid of my face for a while. So this is the video I've shared with you guys yesterday. So I'm making this Yanshan Taiji Pong, or Yanshan Taiji Zhan if you speak in Chinese. It's the form of Chinese healing practice, and I don't know, like I really like this so much. And what am I doing here? Is just to describe this by one word. I am making forms. So this is the form. So this form ended. Now here it goes. The second form up to here. So the form has ended, and now it goes next form, and the form is ended, and now it goes the next form, and the form is ended here, and so on and so on. So I just you might wonder, why on earth am I telling you about this? And the reason for doing this is just to show, you get used to I am teaching you, but I'm not really teaching you that much, to be honest. So I decided to show you the principle of how I learn in personal. So this is how I learn. And one interesting thing regarding this particular video, that I've learned this form only a couple of days ago, and it's available right here in the description. So only a couple of days ago. Yeah, I've been practicing Chinese practices for more than 15 years from now and back to those days. But still, this form I never knew this before. I never learned this. I didn't have regarding this particular form, I didn't ever have a teacher who would be showing me, but I just know the bare principles of how the Eastern consciousness work, what are the forms, and how to make use of it in order to learn something new. And don't look at Taiji or Qigong or things like this, or these forms, but just bear in mind that I'm talking about the way how to learn new thing in regards to Eastern consciousness. So where did I take this from? So there are two videos. So these guys are the students of Zhang Guande, who is the creator of this set. And here let me just just to avoid copyright ban, I just want to mute the sound. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna monetize this video in any case. So let me just. So you see, like, first form. So I'm watching this. I see like he moves left hand, and then he goes right hand. Okay, so another form, and now he goes to the dantian or to the lower belly, and then he goes further on, so another form, and here goes another form. Yeah, so this is how I'm just showing you guys how the consciousness is working, how the Eastern consciousness is working. So it can detect the forms. Whatever he sees, he breaks this into forms, and you know, like, these forms are definitely they can be broken into the forms, and this is available in this video. So we have this form number 1, and the name for the form number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6, etc. So, and up to the very end. So you see, like, these all these are the forms. And now we're going back here. So I've seen that form, and kind of again. So I'm making this form, so you see, like, it was like right over in here. So just making this form, yeah, Kobmakikin principle, as I've been talking about already. So I'm just following this form. So this part, I'm sorry, I'm doing in my video I'm doing slightly faster, but that was because that was a take number 10 apparently, so I was already slightly nervous, but doesn't matter. So this part, and here we go. So Kobmakikin just copies what he sees, and then like, I see the form, so he's doing this movement, okay, and this step in the left hand and push with the right hand. The left hand is upwards, so I'm mimic literally the same. So I'm really copying this, and I swear I didn't learn this from Chinese teachers or something, but I just understand the principles of how this set is built. You see? So, well, obviously he's doing much better. So the lines are more straight and all the stuff. So Chinese are way better than like us who try to mimic this, but still. And like again, so then he just goes. So next form is coming here. Well, here in my version it goes slightly different, because I can't understand what exactly is going on the original version. So I'm just doing this how I feel. But still, I am making forms actually. So I'm just trying to follow the principles if I can't follow in particular. So if I don't understand what exactly he's doing, I'm trying to do this like regarding my own understanding. And here is the other version. So sometimes if you don't understand some little part here, you can reference another video when well, this is Master Zhao, who is instructor in Daoyin Yanshan Center. So she's doing literally the same form, but slightly like, well, I really like how women do this, because it's way softer compared to how men doing this. And you know, like, this is more kind of straight to the point, I guess. I really like this version compared to this one actually. But still, you see, like, still the same forms, and you can recognize this pattern. So imagine if Kobmakikin is not a human, but just a neural network who just recognizes the patterns, just like the image recognition, video recognition, like deepfake technology, things like that. So I can just say that I can see this form, I can see that form. So I'm just kind of recognizing these forms, and as far as I can recognize them, I can mimic this form. And in order to recognize the form, I need some sort of a data set, a really huge one, to literally understand the tiny little bricks that this entire form is built off. So it's really important to understand all these tiny little details. So how the fingers are shaped, where the palm is facing, the elbow is dropped down, the knee is not going beyond the toe, and all these angles with the Gunbu stance and all this stuff. So there's really tons of tiny little details to bear in mind, and assuming that you have that database of all these tiny little details. In this case, you just like a neural network recognizing these forms, and as far as you can recognize them, that means that you can mimic them. So that's kind of it regarding these practices. I'm really sorry, guys, but you see, like, even though I've been talking about this forms already, I did reference the neural networks and machine learning techniques and principles. So how to train this, say, like, network. So I needed really lots of data. So Code Monkey Keen is, in many perspectives, like, it's like a neural network in many respects. So just monkey see, monkey do. So that's the main principle of neural networks, believe it or not. So I guess now this is clear regarding why I was referencing these practices. So what I wanted to say here, that we got the set of forms, and whatever form set, whatever way of practicing. So if it's about the Chinese practices, or it may be the Japanese practices, they also have some. It may be martial arts like karate or wushu or whatever. Literally the same goes in yoga. They have the names for the postures, they call it asanas, and also like they have very similar representation. So it's all about like the form set. So whatever Eastern practice is, it consists of the forms of one or another way to compare them, or each form might be different, the way to do forms might be different, but that's the general rule, that whatever Chinese, whatever Eastern state of culture represented in some sort of human activity, it can be, and the only way it can be represented is via the forms. So that's the gist point to keep track of, to bear in mind. And now, we did talk about this forms versus understanding, like almost, and just before I go further on, so I did talk about the forms, and I like if we would be talking about so now attention, guys, one of the most important parts in this video. So forms versus understanding. So for the Western consciousness, it's really unclear, like, why on earth am I supposed to be doing these forms? And then the Chinese instructor would tell you, well, if you do these forms, you can become a master of martial arts. But then the Western consciousness says, okay, but what about mixed martial arts? So whatever MMA fighter will kick your Chinese master ass, and probably that would be true in many cases. Like, there are lots of videos. So it's not a reason for the Western consciousness to start practicing Chinese martial arts if the Chinese instructor would say, like, so you do this just to become a master, or say if the instructor would say you do this just to heal yourself, to feel better, like to solve some problems with your heart or kidneys or spleen or whatever inner organs. I'm not sure how to call this. So and again, like the Western consciousness would argue, but what about the Western medicine? We could have just like making operations, like replace the heart literally completely, just things like that. So why do we need all this stuff? So what I want to deliver to you guys by saying this, that it's almost impossible for the Western consciousness start doing something without understanding why exactly do I need to do this, what for am I supposed to be doing this, what am I supposed to be doing this for, and how exactly it works. So without this three parts, Western consciousness would probably just drop doing this and wouldn't even be interested in the further understanding of what is that and why to do that, because he has no idea. While the Eastern consciousness, it doesn't care about these questions literally at all. I can say this from my own experience. Like I consider my consciousness to be completely Eastern, believe it or not, and I will explain you why do I consider it to be completely Eastern. Because when I started learning this Chinese practices for more than 15 years ago, I was just like thinking, like, if you ask someone, a Chinese guy, like, why are you practicing this? He would say just, well, I don't know. It's my tradition. I'm just practicing this because my dad was practicing, my grandpa was practicing, everybody around is practicing this. This is our national treasure. I can't explain. I just practice this because this is part of my own understanding, part of my culture. Just practice this. I can't explain this, and that's exactly what I can say. If you will ask me why am I practicing this, even though I'm not a Chinese, unfortunately, I would like to be Chinese. I swear, maybe I was in the previous lives. I don't know, but still, when I started practicing this, I was feeling like I'm just practicing this because this is part of me, because this is part. It's not part of my culture, but I didn't consider Ukrainian culture. I'm from Ukraine. I never considered Ukrainian culture to be my culture. I always felt like I live around the enemies, so our enemies are living around me. So like I'm not at home, like I'm in the enemies. In the enemy's place, basically. So everybody's trying to kill me. That was how I was feeling when I was a kid, basically. And I was really trying to find something that where I could feel like I'm at home, like. So when we're talking about the Eastern consciousness, it's very important to understand that so it doesn't need reasons and explanations to do something, and the only thing it relies on is the inner feeling of the flow, some sort of a flow. You can call this a cultural flow or mind flow, or they call this a chi flow, chi like the energy, and the Taoist tradition considers this to be the what is known as Tao flow, so something like God, but it's not personal, like. So that's kind of it, and you just feel this flow within your own self. And this forms just why they need it. They needed to manage this inner flow to make it to help this flow change your human being, to turn from the animal into a human being and into the deity in a good scenario, let's say so. So from the animal to the human being, and eventually try to become the divine spirit. So that's kind of the steps from bottom to top. And again, like if we were talking about the education, like again the education based on forms, all the Chinese, Japanese, whatever Eastern countries educational system, they go from bottom to top. So just this forms leads this. So like they if they are learning something, they have no idea why they are learning this. They just know that I have to learn this, and if I would be practicing this for a long time, and also if I have a good karma, one day I will understand why am I doing this. And that's how their mind works. That's how my mind works, actually. And I'm telling you about this. It's not kind of my thoughts that I invented one day. It's what I really feel. But nobody really cares about this because, like in Ukraine, when I was trying to tell this to somebody, and I was even trying to teach traditional Wushu and Qigong in the past, but it failed completely because they were kind of asking me like, why do we have to do this? And I couldn't explain them. And when they asked me why am I doing this, I told you I just can't do different way. I just can't live different way. This is me. This is my nature. I just really can't go the different way. That's it. But that didn't make them to change their minds, basically, and that wasn't literally enough. So they just dropped because they had no idea what are they doing, why are they doing this, and what they supposed to get in return after, say, 10 years of practice. And that's kind of it. So I hope now the forms versus understanding is quite pretty clear. So when you're making the forms, you just know how to make the form, but you can have no idea like why is this form should it be done, and what's the purpose, and what you will get in the very last as the very last result. So that's kind of it. But as far as you can feel this inner flow inside, you feel like you did this, you're doing this form once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5, 6, etc. And every time you're doing this form, you feel like your inner flow is getting managed better compared how it was managed the previous iteration. So then every next iteration you're feeling better, you're understanding that it's that your potential is growing. And one of the most important and key things regarding the Eastern consciousness, that If we say about the Western consciousness, the matter of understanding is the matter of the mind effort. So you need to make some efforts with your mind to understand something. But if you're talking about the Eastern understanding, it's the matter of having an energy potential. So if you're Chinese, you can understand something if you don't have enough energy. And like I can tell you this from my own experience. I was trying to understand everything in my life, to be honest, and I did fail completely. Same with programming, believe it or not. And how I did learn programming, I was just making forms in programming, and that's the next part of this talk that I will just cover just right in the moment. So I was growing my energy potential, and eventually that led me to understand of what am I actually doing. So like it's exactly the same like with this YouTube channel. Like I need to make 400,000 videos, 2,000 videos, just to understand what am I doing here, why am I doing this as well. So this is quite important quite important thing regarding the Eastern consciousness on how it works. So in order to understand something, it needs lots of iterations. Every iteration of doing literally the same thing makes you understand it better and better and better. And that's why all my web scraping tutorials are all the same, because I'm doing every single thing again and again and again. And I just want to show you this on the example. So how in particular do I practice this way of learning, this way of understanding in my life, in my career. So you see, like I've already shown you that whatever set of Chinese Qigong exercises or form set. Okay, Devinanda, thanks for the commentary. I will answer just when I end this video. Sorry, man. Okay, so when I was talking about this part, so I said like whatever set the form set contains from the single forms. And if with let's say the Scrapy spider that I'm writing every single time when I'm doing a Scrapy tutorial on this channel, so it also have, well, I can say that these are the forms. You can call this whatever, but how this works in my mind, like I see that first, I say the same words every time in my web scraping tutorial. I say like, first we need to import some packages. And then I say import Scrapy from crawler process, import crawler process in order to be able to run your Scrapy spider from within a Python script. I've said this phrase numerous times, really. Every time I'm making a new tutorial, I'm just saying literally the same. I say like, first we need to import packages, then I say import Scrapy from Scrapy crawler, import crawler process. That's needed in order to be able to run the Scrapy spider from within a Python script. And then we need to say from Scrapy selector import selector, and this is needed in order to being able to parse HTML response stored locally, just in order to avoid torturing the target server. Like if you've been watching my YouTube videos regarding web scraping tutorials, you've heard this phrases really numerous times, and you might wonder why am I repeating them all the time. And that's because that's the way how I learn. That's in order to like get the understanding, I need to do really lots of iterations. So I'm doing this again and again and again and again and again. That's kind of it. So that's how the Eastern consciousness understands programming. Believe it or not, yeah. So that's the very secret. That's it. And then the next part is the spider class, and I'm defining the spider class, and the very last part is kind of the main driver. So I'm creating the process. That would be the instance of the crawler process, and then sending my spider class as the first argument of the process, the crawl method, and eventually same process to start. And I'm repeating these phrases again and again and again and again and again. Okay, and then when it comes to and again, like in my own understanding, like when you're talking about Qigong, there is the heaven, earth, and the man, and these are the I don't have enough English words to describe this. So you have like the heaven chi, the earth chi, and the man's chi. So this here is just like the heaven's chi for me. In personal, this like because it's kind of all you reference, like all big frameworks, projects, whatever, everything you reference in order to do your own job, and this part is the earth part, because just in order to, so this what makes things happen, just to run just the very bottom of the code. I know. So this like the earth, and the human being is the central part, which so this relates to head, this relates to lower abdomen, or dantian, how they call this, and this part relates to heart, to the central center, this one. So within this center like kind of spider class, this is the main part. It's the biggest out there. So here we're creating the logic and so on. But again, within the single spider class, like again, we have the start request, which is the high level, like kind of crawler entry point. So it's like a heaven, like this part. Okay. Then we got the parse method, and that's like the middle part, the main part. So you see, like it's all nested, you know, like it's all been nested, just like this structure. And eventually we have the logic to write the output to the file, to the disk, basically. And that's the lowest, the earth part. So just like this one. So something material that you can touch, basically. So the file, the output file, is something that you can touch. So I'm just trying to I don't know, like maybe this sounds really weird to you guys, but you know, like, I swear, I don't know, but I swear that that's exactly the way how Chinese programmers learn, how Japanese programmers learn, because that's just so deeply, that's the prototypes of your mind, of your understanding, of the matrices that you're built up, basically. That's the Eastern consciousness. So, you know, like, that's how I see what am I doing. And you know, like, for me, writing just to summarize said above, just for me in personal, writing a scrapey spider is literally the same as if I'm making this form set. So like I'm starting from the very beginning form, and then I'm going, and then I'm flowing. So I'm importing packages, and then I'm defining the main scraper spider class, and I'm defining the class field variables like base URL, etc., and then I'm going to provide the crawler's entry point via the def start request method, and then I'm going to be parsing the response, and again, then I'm going to be storing the output, and eventually I will end up with the file of the data, with the file where all the data is being scraped, basically. So that's kind of it, you know, like this was actually I already kind of described how it correlates, how the software development correlates with the self-development practices. I've just explained this basically. And well, regarding living your life, so this is the very last part, and probably one of the most important, even though it doesn't really relate to the software development, but it relates to the learning path in general. So, but learning path and the life path are really similar. So here I've drafted a schema. I will now explain you what this means in particular. So let's consider this symbol to be the dead point. So you kind of hit the wall. So you're over here, yeah, like you hit the wall, and you have no idea what to do. And then it just, you know, like something happens, and you're getting an understanding. You found a teacher who opened your eyes. I don't know, you've seen some video on YouTube that has opened your eyes. Something happened in your life that has opened your eyes. So just you open your eyes to understand, like you got some small enlightenment. Like you get just got some small enlightenment, and you see exactly 1, 2, 3 steps ahead, and you say like, yeah, I like this path. I really want to go this path. So just being inspired by some sort of a video or seeing something or whatever, so you just see the next, say, 3 steps, and then you go. So this symbol represents you, okay? So then you go, you're excited, you say like, oh, this is so cool, I want to learn this is so exciting, and then you go here again, so exciting, and then it stops, and you hit the forest of, I don't know, you hit the forest basically. So this symbol represents the forest. So the way is not clear anymore. So lots of trees, lots of paths, you have no idea where to go, and you're trying to dig through. You go in here, and maybe you go in here, and you're already slowing down, and then eventually you stop and you drop this entirely. But in order to get to the next enlightenment, over here, you need to go through, you need to be very patient. You need patience. So you're walking through next forest, going here. You would find you would step to some sort of a state when you hit a wall again, when you say like there is no fucking escape from this forest, and you feel like completely lost and you have no idea, but you still keep going, keep pushing forward, and just keep your efforts, and suddenly it happens and you get another enlightenment. And this time you're going through literally the same iteration. So this is the first iteration, this is the second iteration, and these iterations are going on until you die, basically. So from the very birth time until your dying day, basically. So, and now I would like to explain what in particular am I trying to teach you guys. I'm not teaching you web scraping. You might wonder that I'm teaching you web scraping, but it's not really the case. Basically, web scraping is just the way to illustrate the principles I'm using in my life in particular. So there are two ways. First, if you're a kid, if you're a child, yeah, you need some parents or teachers or somebody that would help you. Say you're stuck somewhere over in here, and you have no idea where to go next, so you feel completely lost. You may go here, and then you may go step back, and then you may make several steps forwards, and then just going backwards again, and you're just moving back and forth through this forest without finding an escape. So you have no idea how you can escape this forest, and that's the state where you need some help from the outside. So somebody who has already went through this path, went through, say, this particular iteration, right? So like, say this iteration, like gaining your skills, this iteration, like land your entire job, land your first job. Say this iteration, like I didn't write this, but imagine it is here. So this iteration, you just becoming a pro, and the next iteration, you're, I don't know, like you're starting your own startup, your company, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Everybody goes his own way. It's not a case. So what would it be exactly in the next iterations? So, but the problem is when you're stuck here. So you can even end up that you've lost your direction and trying to go backwards instead of going forward. So you need to go here, but eventually you find yourself going right over here. I'm sorry for this two-dimensional explanation. It's much more complicated in the real life, but just to give you an idea. So the person who is called a teacher, and I mean the teacher in the understanding of the Eastern consciousness, not the Western consciousness, but the Eastern consciousness. And I just want to give one more credit to Daniel Lewis, who called me the web scraping sensei. Daniel, thank you, man, for leaving this commentary, because this is the very gist actually of what am I doing. So let me explain. So here, so what's the purpose of the teacher from the Eastern consciousness perspective? Teacher doesn't teach you exactly what to do or how to do. It's more like regards to instructor. But the teacher's goal is actually to keep watching you, keep watching your growth. So if you're like here, and then you're going like over here, and then like you're going right over in here, then teacher is not doing anything. So he's not torturing you, he's just watching. But if for some reason you've turned and going, say, backwards, then the teacher would say, okay, this is wrong, so you just need to go, you need to keep going forwards, and he would might give you some right hints of how exactly you're supposed to be doing this, etc. So in this case, you realize, so so these two dimensions, and the teacher is like the third dimension. Well, if we're talking about the two-dimensional space here, then your path lies within these two dimensions. It's only like left, right. Even this should have been considered probably like a one dimension. Yeah, like, and the teacher is coming from another dimension, and he tells you like, no, this is wrong, so this is right, and he can say like, he can generate the entire. What teacher can do, he can generate the entire. He can generate the entire iteration cycle, Yeah, and that's why the web scraping tutorials are needed for. Oh my god, what have I done? So he can generate this cycle, and he says like, okay, so you're over in here, and I'm over in here. So he can make one step back, and it's not true. So one step back here, and we synchronize. And you say like, oh, okay, it's student is saying, okay, teacher, I can see you. Yeah, I can see you. You're over in here. And then the teacher says, okay, so let's turn around. And then student says, okay, like we turn around. And then teacher says, okay, so now we go in here. And student repeats, okay, here, perfect. And that teacher goes, then we go here. And student again like, okay, we're going right over in here. And teacher like, okay, so you got the gist, right? So you understand, so what you're supposed to be doing. So you just keep going next, and the student like he's happy, like, okay, I understand. And then the teacher disappears, and the student like, okay, I'm going like teacher said, okay, I'm going like teacher said. And then like and suddenly he thinks like, oh my god, I'm lost again. And he's trying to go back, but then he realizes, okay, so teacher told me not going that way. Okay, so I would probably keep the direction, right? Okay, I would try to make another step. And then he goes, and then he hits the wall. But then again, like, if teacher appears, so teacher appears right over here, and he's saying like, so teacher is over in here, and the difference is that there is no wall from the teacher's perspective. And he says like, we're synchronized, right? So you're here, I'm here, so, and just one step forward we have another enlightenment, right? And the student just trusts this, and he just goes another step. So there is no wall for a teacher, right? At least at this iteration, the teacher would have his own wall in like 20 more iterations further on. But so the principle is all on this is all way along the same. And here student is happy, like, yeah, I got another enlightenment. And then he goes. So the need of having a teacher is only the need to become a standalone walker, basically. So you need to learn how to walk on your own, basically. And as far as you've got the skill, as far as you've learned, starting from here, you just going and say like right over in here, you're not lost. You just keep going, and even if you hit the wall, you understand that it was already before. That's just the wall. You need just to make one step further, and finally you got another enlightenment. In this iteration, you're doing literally the same that you've been doing in this iteration, but in this iteration, this goes already slightly on a higher energy potential, and the higher energy potential means a bigger understanding of what's going on under the hood. And the bigger your understanding, the more you're starting to see like more general picture, and you're kind of like your consciousness starts to serve you as a teacher, because your consciousness lies within the different dimension compared to where your life and energy flows. So as far as your life and energy is growing, your consciousness is also growing, and when your consciousness is growing, it can help you kind of walk through these difficulties and complete the current iteration and go to the next iteration and further on, and so on. So this is it, guys, for this video. I'm so happy to actually to finish this talk finally. So I don't know, did I actually manage to explain what this was, what was it all about, like difference within the Eastern and Western consciousness in regards to software development? Probably maybe I didn't really talk about the difference, but at least I did explain how the Eastern consciousness work, how it learns, how it walks through its life path, learn path, career path, whatever path, and how to walk through the difficulties. So how to use the materials that might have served you as a teacher. So it's like some sort of guidelines, So it's not about to teach you how in particular doing your own steps. It just needed to make you keep going, and that's literally it. So just keep going and you will definitely succeed. So this is it for this video. I wish you all the best, guys. Until the next time, and take care.